Some of you know that my husband, Larry, was in a bad accident a few weeks ago. To make a short story short, he was walking around in our friend's country house in the middle of the night. It was pitch dark, and he found a set of steps instead of what he was looking for. It was a pretty horrible fall. He emerged with four to six broken ribs, we don't know exactly how many, a wrist broken in a few places, and a punctured lung. Thank you. I appreciate the empathy. I took him to the emergency room, and he ended up in the ICU for a few days. But I'm telling you this story not to tell you the story of the fall, but to tell you something else. A few days ago, he had surgery on his wrist to kind of realign it and make sure he gets full mobility back. And after surgery, he was still hazy from the effects of the anesthetic. And I don't know how many of you have had surgery and sort of been there and felt that, but your defenses are down. And somehow, the feeling of the anesthetic reminded him of living in Iran when he was young, a young man, where he lived for a few years and taught English, and where every night after work, he would sit in this beautiful courtyard next to a lemon tree and a pool of water and smoke hashish with his friends, and they would recite the poetry of Rumi in Persian. So here we are, as far away from that kind of environment as possible, at HSS, the Hospital for Special Surgery, in a little white and sterile cubicle, no lemon tree, no pool, no hashish, but a little anesthetic, and he requests that I play Rumi poems for him in Persian. And so I did, on my phone. And he recognized some of the words because he speaks basic Persian since he lived there for a few years. And we listened to fragments of poems in Persian while I read the translations, which will sort of go across the YouTube screen. So a fragment like this: cry out all your grief, your disappointment. Say them in Farsi, then Greek. You are infinitely more alive. Say how that is. Or like this. This one is called Bird Wings. Your grief for what you've lost lifts a mirror up to where you're bravely working, expecting the worst. You look, and instead, here's the joyful face you've been wanting to see. Your hands open and closes and opens and closes. If it were always a fist or always stretched open, you would be paralyzed. Your deepest presence is in every small contracting and expanding. The two as beautifully balanced and coordinated as bird wings. My husband, listening to those words in Persian, teared up and said they really brought back those moments in the courtyard that were so alive. And somehow, at that vulnerable moment, in the haze of his anesthetic, in a small, sterile cubicle at HSS, in the aftermath of a horrible accident, the memory of those moments brought him comfort. And hearing the words of Rumi in Persian brought it back oh so viscerally and comforted him. The nurse appeared and saw tears streaming down his eyes, and she got a little worried. But I explained to her that it was just the effect of the poetry. On this Shabbat Nachamu, this Shabbat of comfort, we ourselves stand vulnerable. Between the grief of Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, where we mourn the destruction of the temples and many other Jewish calamities and sadnesses. And we know so well this moment of Jewish sadness. And between the love of the day of Tu B'Av, which will commence on Sunday night, the 15th day of Av, which served as a matchmaking day for unmarried women in the Second Temple period, and now has become a kind of Jewish Valentine's Day. Ready to celebrate? We stand the Shabbat so in need of comfort. A comfort which is a kind of bridge between grief and love. Moshe, too, in this parsha, in this portion, the Et Hanan, is really in need of comfort. He stands in grief at the beginning of the parasha. He tells a story to his people of praying, of begging God to be allowed into the promised land, this land that he had fought so hard to bring his people into. Asking for grace, he says, and I pleaded, asking God for grace, saying, "V'etchanan el Adonai ba'et hahi lemor." My God, you have only just started to let your servants see your greatness and your strong hand, to see who is a God in heaven and on earth that can do according to your deeds and according to your power. Pray, let me cross over, that I may see the good land that is in the country across the Jordan, these good highlands and the Lebanon. E'ebrana ve'eret ha'aretz hatova asher be'ever hayarden, ha'har hatov hazeh v'halevanon. But God was cross with me because of you, and he would not listen to me. God said to me, enough for you. Rav lecha, do not speak to me anymore again about this matter. Wow, Moshe is begging, Moshe is vulnerable, and God is so harsh. Moshe is so desperate to accompany his beloved people into the land of promise, only to be told by God, enough, be quiet. But there's something interesting going on here in terms of language, which may allow us to see another level, or even a level or two of meaning in this disturbing passage. The key word here is crossing over. It's a kind of Leitwort, which is used in different forms a number of times. Pray, let me cross over. E'ebrana. And then God was cross with me. Vayitaber Adonai bi. So the word for crossing over is also, the same root is also anger. And then a couple of verses later, or be'einacha ki lo ta'avor et hayarden hazeh. You will see the land with your eyes, God says to Moshe, because you will not cross over this land, but Joshua will cross over. So cross, 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 right? Avor, avor, avor. Ouch. Moshe can't cross over, but Joshua can. So remember that root to cross is also the root of the word Ivri, Hebrew, our very identity, right? We are the ones who cross over. And at this liminal moment, Moshe is refused that identity of being a Hebrew, of being able to cross over. His ultimate dream, to lead his people into the promised land, shattered. But this word means something else. One form of the verb, the PL form, a kind of intensification of the very root, means to impregnate, like ibarti, I impregnated. And the word for fetus is ubar, created from the same root. Pregnancy, the ultimate liminal state. And a fetus, a kind of fledgling, liminal creature, not quite viable. I think of Moshe at this moment as a mother who cannot travel forward with her children because the nature of parents and children, The way of the world generally is children go forward, and parents can only get a glimpse of the next generation, a glimpse of their children's future. It's the way of the world, but it's so painful to not be able to travel along with them. So here Moshe is like a grieving mother, not able to accompany her beloved children. So where is the comfort? God says to Moshe, maybe inviting Moshe to live into a different kind of consciousness. A consciousness where the emphasis is on seeing. God tells Moshe, go up to the top of Pisgah and lift your eyes toward the west, the north, the south, and the east. Behold it with your eyes and see the promised land that you can't go into. But here's the problem. Where is the promised land? Moshe is in the Straits of Moab. Is it all around? No, it's towards the east. It's not really possible in any one moment for a human being located in time and space to see in all directions at once. We cannot see in front of us what's in front of us and behind us at once. But here, Moshe is invited into cross-directional vision. Even though the promised land is only to the east, it seems like God is saying in this story, on this plane, on the plane of the human story, the promise is over there, in that place to the east of where you stand. But on another plane, on a plane maybe beyond life, beyond being constrained to one physical body, maybe in the life of the soul, the promise is fulfilled everywhere. In front of you, to the side of you, in back of you. If only you have eyes to see, to really see the promise, the fulfillment, the faith that life is truly made out of. Maybe the promise is being filled everywhere, all around us, even at this moment of fear and despair. Moshe is invited into vision, 360 vision, right? Expanded vision, a kind of soul vision, cross-dimensional vision. Was that comforting to Moshe? I don't know. It doesn't say so. But I like to think it was. We so need to be comforted at this moment as a people. Because even though Tisha B'Av is over, even as we stand in the Shabbat of comfort, on the way to the love of Tu B'Av, we stand in peril. We stand before a possible ceasefire agreement and a possible expanded regional war. I can barely stand the tension. My friends in Israel write me saying that every pop and bang they hear, every phone that sounds like a siren, terrifies them and sends them running to find out if they need to go to run to their safe rooms. We stand like Moshe in existential crisis. What will our future look like? Can we go to the next stage, the next forum of Jewish existence? What will the land of the promise look like and be like? At this moment, I want to return to the words of Rumi. Cry out all your grief, your disappointment. Say them in Farsi and Greek. And just to add my own words here, say them in Hebrew, in English, maybe Spanish or French. Whatever your language is, spill out your angst, your disappointment. You are infinitely more alive. Say how that is. What is that like? What is it like to be in touch with your infinite aliveness in the midst of this fear and disappointment? Despite the terror of what the people of Israel is experiencing at this moment, despite the horrors of war, Rumi says, we are bigger than our disappointment. Even in the face of dread and depression, despair, even if we are paralyzed with fear or filled with rage, even if we are so in touch with our vulnerability as my husband was during his fall and then post-surgery, We are infinitely more alive. Can we feel into that? Can we expand beyond our disappointment? Can we feel the promise? Can we see it in front of us, to this side of us, to that side of us, behind us? Can we find comfort on this Shabbat, Nachamu?